You didn't land here by accident. Something in you is done paying for almost, done repeating careful days that look fine on the outside and feel thin on the inside, done mistaking motion for movement and permission for power. If that sentence sits in your chest like a key you already know, stay with me. What you are about to receive is not a costume or a ceremony. It is a code you can run in the middle of an ordinary room to change how reality meets you. The name I'll use for it is the PTAH Code. Not as a museum piece, but as shorthand for a working method. How attention turns into a word that lands with weight. How that word becomes a footprint in the world. And how proportion keeps the whole sequence honest, so it doesn't collapse under its own noise. If you've ever watched your mouth say yes while your spine quietly folded, if you've ever woken at 2 a.m. to argue with a decision that made sense on paper and felt wrong in your bones, if you've ever looked at a life that works and wondered why your breath is still shallow, then you have already met the door we are going to open. The promise is plain. By the time this message finishes, you will have a sentence you can speak and a tiny act you can take that shifts the angle of your day from performing to authoring. You will not need belief. You will need honesty and a single present tense line that your body can recognize as true. That recognition matters because reality answers you through your state before it answers you through your story. When state and story disagree, life gets expensive. You pay in tension and delay. You pay in crowded weeks that do not add up to anything you actually value. You pay by outsourcing authorship to algorithms, to calendars, to other people's urgency. The PTAH Code is a way of taking authorship back without declaring war on your life. It begins in the seam where the dream loosens. The split second when you hear your own voice from an inch behind your face and realize you are watching yourself say things you do not fully mean. That seam is not failure. It is the handle. Most people slam the door on it and call it fatigue. You are going to hold the door open and walk through. Before we name the parts, clear a few illusions that keep serious people stuck. Power does not need to look dramatic to be real. You do not need the world to move first, so you can feel safe to follow. You will not get a better future by reorganizing the icons of a day while the underlying code stays the same. New job, old dread. New city, old silence. New routine, old avoidance. The furniture changes, the room remains. The PTAH Code edits the layer beneath. It gives you a way to stop living at the mercy of your own commentary and start issuing instructions your nervous system can trust. It is not a philosophy that asks for applause. It is a practice that leaves evidence. Evidence looks like a line sent, a call placed, a posture corrected, a cup of water poured and finished, a boundary spoken once and kept. When you leave that kind of footprint, the world has something to answer. Without a footprint, even the cleanest intentions circulate like smoke. If you are waiting for permission, consider what waiting has cost. Hours spent gathering courage instead of placing one small fact in reality. Even knowledge becomes a padded cell when it replaces movement. You can explain your patterns perfectly and still not move the hinge. Ritual can be another disguise, a long performance of preparation that keeps the guard in your head busy while the prisoner watches the clock. The guard is not evil. It is frightened and unimaginative. The prisoner is not weak. It is waiting for a key. The key is never a lecture. It is always a word and a proof that fit the room you are standing in right now. Fit matters more than volume. The right proportion protects power from backfiring. A line that is too large for the day invites pushback. A line that is smaller than your capacity invites drift. You already know the taste of both mistakes. Strain tastes like explaining. Drift tastes like delay disguised as patience. The right-sized line lands with a quiet weight, and the next step becomes obvious enough to do without a pep talk. This is what I mean by controlling reality. Not forcing outcomes with clenched jaw, but setting the only variables you actually own. The quality of your attention, the authority of your word, the smallness and undeniability of your proof, and the proportion that keeps the move in the zone where life can cooperate. When those variables line up, rooms read you differently. People respond without needing a speech. Time stops arguing and starts arranging. You are not pulling strings behind the curtain. You are removing your hand from the wrong levers and putting it on the handle that was built to turn. If a part of you wants to object, let it. Skepticism does not interfere with physics. The mirror never moves first, but it always answers. If you stand in front of it with a steady look, speak a present tense line, and leave one small fact on the table, the reflection changes shape. Call that coincidence if you like. Then run the code twice tomorrow and watch whether coincidence keeps showing up on time. The rest of this guide is simple. I will show you how to hold the steady look without straining, how to craft a line that carries authority instead of hope, how to choose the smallest proof that settles the matter, and how to run a proportion check so your move belongs in the room you are standing in. We will practice in the scenes that eat most of your days: body, work, relationships. You will see how quietly power travels when it is fitted to its moment. You will learn to measure progress by relief before results. And you will walk away with a method you can use in rush hours and waiting rooms, in meetings and kitchens, in any place a human breath can lengthen by one count. If you are ready, decide one thing now. For the next minutes, give your attention the dignity of not splitting it. Let your shoulders lower. Let your jaw loosen. Let your gaze widen by a few degrees. You will feel the room get clearer without changing. That is the seam. Do not flinch. You do not need mysticism to use this. You need a way to hold your own attention long enough for a clean sentence to form, and a way to place one small fact in the world before your doubt gathers its committee. Begin by noticing how your perception changes when you stop pressing your face against the glass of your own commentary. There is a posture the mind takes when it is ready to author rather than perform. The breath falls into a slower rhythm without being commanded. The muscles around the eyes soften as if a fogged pane has been wiped. Your awareness sits an inch behind the face and begins to see before it names. This is the right place to speak from, because it is the only place where the sentence you choose will sound like a decision and not a plea. The sentence is present tense and proportioned for the day you are standing in. It does not say "I want" or "I will." It says "I do," and it fits the room the way a key fits its lock. There is no flourish and there is no apology, because both are distortions. A good line feels like a carpenter marking a cut. Clear, current, final. The line by itself is not enough. Reality answers what it can lean on. You give it that by leaving a small piece of proof that no opinion can argue with. Send the first message. Stand up and correct your posture. Put water into your body. One small act that closes the gap between language and world. The act is not a token. It is the anchor that keeps your decision from dissolving back into talk. Around all of this runs a single guardrail that keeps power honest. Fit. Fit asks whether this word belongs here with these people at this time, whether it steadies the ground you share rather than lighting it on fire for spectacle, whether the scale of the move respects reality enough to invite cooperation. When the move is too large for the day, strain appears and explanations multiply. When the move is too small for your capacity, drift appears and days blur. Fit sets the proportion that lets the world meet you halfway. This is the spine of the PTAH Code. Attention that sees instead of naming, a present tense word that carries authority instead of hope, a small proof that leaves a footprint, and a proportion that keeps the whole sequence from warping. The mirror never moves first. It reads state, word, and evidence. When those three align, the reading changes and doors that looked like walls begin to behave like doors again. You have felt this in miniature 1,000 times and brushed it off as luck. You will stop doing that now. You will treat the small shift as the template and run it deliberately until relief arrives before results. Relief is the first trustworthy sign that you are authoring rather than auditioning. It does not feel like a high. It feels like a weight removed from your breath. Do not be surprised when old reflexes arrive as soon as clarity opens. They will show up wearing the uniforms that kept you safe long enough to get here. One part of you will parade around as the responsible guard. It will whisper that steady moves are selfish, that proportion is cowardice, that you must remain understandable to the version of you the world already knows. Another part will sit in the corner like a patient prisoner and wait for rescue. It will recite rules it learned from family and culture until your willpower is tired and your hour is gone. Neither part is an enemy, both are misassigned. The guard was hired to prevent disaster and grew overzealous. The prisoner was trained to wait for permission and grew convinced that doors open by themselves. Reassign them. Give the guard a smaller post where it excels. Simple safety checks that last 30 seconds and ask whether the move fits the room, whether the timing is clean, whether the footprint is small enough to be undeniable by nightfall. Give the prisoner a key in the form of a present tense line and a first step that requires no audience. Watch what happens to your fear under these conditions. Fear is loudest in the gap between decision and evidence. When the gap shrinks to a sentence and an act, fear loses its amplifier. The mind still forecasts, but the body stops obeying the forecast as if it already happened. This is how you take control of reality at the only point where control is honest, the crossing between what you say and what you leave in the world. Loops will try to reclaim you, because loops are efficient for systems that prefer you predictable. Learn to see them by their aftertaste. The new icon with the old code has the aftertaste of déjà vu. The scenery changes, the feeling does not. Knowledge as sedation has the aftertaste of accomplishment without a footprint. You know everything about the problem and have done nothing that the problem can feel. Ritual inflation has the aftertaste of authority with no weight. Hours are consumed and nothing is anchored. Outsourced authorship has the aftertaste of borrowed certainty. It tastes fine until the bill arrives in the form of a day that belongs to someone else. Moral theater has the aftertaste of performative goodness that drains your power without feeding anyone. None of these exits needs your shame. They need your accuracy. Name the aftertaste and you will feel the urge to defend a plan dissolve. Returning to the code is not a grand gesture. It is a small pivot. Steady the look. Speak the line that belongs here. Place the proof where the room can feel it. Let proportion do its work. Carry this into scenes where life actually happens, in a body that has learned to fold forward at every counter and screen. The authoring move is not a fitness vow. It is attention noticing the weight of the head, a line that fits, and a micro proof the body can feel now. The line sounds like I lift my chest and stack my spine, and the proof is one breath that widens the ribs sideways while your feet feel the floor. The room did not change. Your place in it did. Repeat that once an hour, and your day slowly edits itself around a new baseline. In work that has become a theater of avoidance, the authoring move is not a manifesto. It is a first line sent before the next meeting, a call made while the argument in your head is still warming up, a draft named and saved so other people can meet it without guessing. The line sounds like I ship one real unit now, and the proof is the unit, however small. Projects that refuse to move under pressure move under existence because existence invites cooperation that pressure cannot. In relationships that have been staged as polite silence, the authoring move is not an ambush of feelings. It is a truth fitted to this hour with this person, spoken once without heat and followed by a pause you do not fill. The line sounds like I do not have the capacity to carry that. And the proof is your calendar reshaping by one slot, not a speech. The pattern changes when you put a fact on the table that did not exist an hour ago. Reality responds to proportion because proportion steadies more than your mood. People can feel when your word is sized to the room. They relax because the ground beneath them feels less fragile. If you want the day to cooperate, give it a spine it can recognize. Claim the morning before the world can claim you. Sit where your feet touch the floor and let one unhurried exhale inform the system that there is no emergency. Rest your attention an inch behind the face and feel how thoughts continue to move without dragging you. Speak a single present tense line that fits the day you intend to live. Choose a promise so small the guard does not bristle and the prisoner does not despair. Keep it before noon. The body learns safety from kept promises more quickly than from any speech. Meet the hinges of the day with the same posture. When a choice appears, give yourself one breath longer than you want. Let your shoulders drop by a centimeter and ask which option leaves you quieter in an hour rather than applauded in a minute. Let silence complete the answer. Act once. End the evening by returning to coherence rather than to a loop. Dim the lights a little earlier. Run 7 gentle breaths with attention behind the brow so sleep can consolidate the new setting. Name one thing that felt true today and one thing you are done renting mental space to. Ink is a cleaner exit than a midnight debate. If you forget any of this by noon, you have not failed. You have an invitation. Reset at noon. The code is generous because it rides on physiology, not on mood. It is there every time your breath is willing to lengthen by 1 count. You will be tempted to measure progress by applause, by speed, by other people's admiration. Those are noisy metrics. Measure by relief, by coherence, by energy that returns to you after you move. If a choice leaves you sharper 10 minutes later, it belongs. If a choice leaves you explaining yourself to yourself, it does not. Keep a quiet ledger for a week. Write down where relief came first, where the single sentence changed an entire room, where a boundary spoken once turned into time that nourished actual work, where a repeat turned into direction. The ledger trains the rational mind to trust what the body already knows, not because of a theory, but because of arithmetic. This arithmetic is how you control reality without becoming a tyrant to yourself or anyone else. You do not command outcomes. You set variables that reality can answer without distortion. A steadier state, a right-sized word, a footprint that can be felt, and a fit that lets cooperation happen. Control at this level feels less like domination and more like conduction. You are not forcing current through a system. You are removing corrosion so current flows. There will be silences between waves of clarity. Call them integration. Protect them the way you would protect a graft that is taking. Do not pluck at the work to check whether it is growing. Complete what you started and let completion teach the system that you can carry what you call in. When resistance spikes, it will borrow costumes that have fooled you before. It will call itself responsibility and insist that steadiness is selfishness. It will call itself urgency and insist that the right move must be made while you are braced. Decline both. Responsible moves feel grounded in the body. Real urgency sharpens the voice without narrowing awareness. Let your physiology answer before your mouth does. 1 slow exhale, 1 inch of shoulder lowering, 1 degree of softened gaze. Watch how the story changes the moment the state does. This is not superstition. It is sequencing. If you are drawn to old names, you can borrow them for a while without becoming their servant. Think of PTAH not as an idol but as a verb, the act of shaping by heart and by tongue. Heart means attention that is steady enough to see. Tongue means a word that lands without wobble. The making happens in the world when those two line up inside a proportion that respects what belongs. You do not need a shrine to use this. You need a room, a breath, a line, and a step. Myth earns its keep when it gives ordinary people language that cuts through their own static. The moment you feel language turning into theater, return to plain words. The code does not care what you call it. It cares whether you run it. You may still wonder how this plays out over more than a day. Give it 7. For 7 mornings, sit and claim the day with 1 line and 1 micro-promise you keep before noon. For 7 afternoons, meet your hinges with your quieter question and let it choose the option that returns energy rather than applause. For 7 evenings, end with coherence and ink. Watch what happens on day 3 when your calendar begins to mirror your claims. Watch what happens on day 5 when a person who belongs to your next chapter arrives as if on cue. Watch what happens on day 7 when sleep returns and you realize your mind is no longer arguing with your own timing. None of this is magic. It is fidelity. Fidelity turns a setting into a baseline. As you close this transmission, decide on a single line that belongs here, spoken in your own voice, as if you were confirming a meeting with yourself. Say it once. Then place one small proof where the room can feel it before the day ends. Send the message you have delayed. Clear the surface you keep hiding under paper. Drink water before the second coffee. Step outside and let your breath lengthen while you look at a sky that has been broadcasting this whole time. Let ordinary be victory and proportion be power. You do not need to film yourself doing any of it. You do not need to announce it to make it real. The interface updates after you move. The mirror answers after you speak. Control begins where authorship begins, in the scene where you stop performing and start placing your word into the world you intend to live in. When the seam appears again tomorrow, treat it as the doorway, not a defect. Step through it without bargaining. Speak once in a size that fits. Leave one undeniable fact behind. Then walk as if the ground knows your step, because it does. The handle has always been on your side of the door. Keep your hand there. The rest is arithmetic. You are going to meet the day in a few hours. Before it meets you, set your instrument. Sit where your feet can feel the floor and let your exhale be longer than your inhale without force. Rest attention an inch behind your face until thoughts become like weather you can watch rather than wind that throws you around. From that place, speak your line in the present tense and wear it as if it were clothing cut to your measure. Choose one action so small that it becomes ridiculous not to do it. Do it before noon. Every time you do, the guard learns you are not reckless, and the prisoner learns the door responds. When a hinge appears, lower your shoulders and ask your quieter question. Which option leaves me quieter in an hour? Let that answer outrank the habit that chases quick applause. End the night with ink and breath, so the system sleeps in the language it woke in. If you forget at 2, begin at 2. If you forget all day, begin tomorrow morning. You are controlling reality at the level where control is legitimate. The level where your state and your word and your footprint teach the room who is showing up. When the room learns, it answers. And when it answers, you will recognize the tone. It sounds like timing that cooperates. It feels like effort turning into traction. It looks like people arriving with the right questions instead of with demands that keep you small. Do not mistake the quiet for weakness. Quiet is what power sounds like when it is fitted to its moment. Quiet is what reality trusts. You will notice the world begin to conspire in small, measurable ways. A call you feared returns your honesty with respect rather than punishment. A task you have avoided for weeks becomes easy after you place the first paragraph in the world, because existence attracts help that planning never does. A relationship that had been running on politeness either deepens or frees you, and both are mercies. You will also notice yourself less tempted by spectacle. Long routines that used to make you feel righteous now feel like stalling. Long explanations that used to feel necessary now feel like leaks. You will not become hard. You will become exact. Exactness is not cruelty. It is care without waste. There is one last piece that completes the circle and keeps you from turning this into another performance. Humility. Not the kind that says you are small. The kind that says you are accurate. You did not invent the sky by looking up. You simply looked. You did not change the laws of the room by speaking one line and placing one proof. You aligned with them. This humility keeps your words sized to the day and prevents backlash. It lets you be a person among people, steadying the ground you share rather than trying to dominate it. It is the difference between a force that burns and a force that builds. Building is slower at first and unstoppable later. If you need one sentence to carry into the next hour, let it be this in your own words. I speak a right-sized line and leave one fact behind. Say it before the screen pulls you into its weather. Say it before the meeting starts. Say it before you decide how to spend the next block of your life. Then keep it small and kept. You are the creator in the only way that matters here. You shape the meeting point between your inner and outer world so they stop arguing and start cooperating. That is what adults mean when they talk about control. It is not a clenched jaw. It is a steady hand on the only lever that moves. Place that hand again and again until the setting stops being something you visit and becomes the place you live from. When it slips, as it will, shorten the distance between forgetting and remembering. Breathe. Return the glass to the table. Speak the line that fits. Leave one undeniable fact behind. The interface updates. The mirror answers. The room changes tone, quietly, reliably, enough. Before you go, anchor this shift in the field. Comment, "I'm the creator," to ensure you are going to put into practice the code we shared here. If this transmission helped you somehow, subscribe to our community so this signal keeps finding you exactly when you need it. Remember, the mirror answers the steady ones. You just gotta be one of them.